Welcome to the Jeff Knows Inc. Entrepreneurial Show with your host, Jeff Lopes.
We are live on the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lopes. Super excited to have on today Brad Montague. What is up, brother?
Hello to me.
This is going to be here with you. This is going to be a fun conversation today. Brad has obviously New York Times top seller. He's the gentleman behind the Kid. Is it the Kid President? That's it.
Yes.
And there's tons of stuff. So I always like starting off where learning as much as I can about you, your upbringing, what got you to this path, and then we kind of just take the story from there. So you grew up in Tennessee. How was your childhood, and how did it all? Where did your love for writing, creativity? Where did that all start?
Well, I remember one point when I was a kid. I grew up in a small town in Tennessee, and I remember there was a time I was staring out the window of my room, and I remember my parents I had probably been there for, who knows, maybe an hour, just staring out the window, and I remember the concern on my parents' face. Where they're like tentatively asking at the door, is he okay, Brad? Are you okay? And I was like, what? I was just, I had a whole world happening in my head. And only later realized, they had reason to be concerned. Oh no, he's creative. Oh no. As I grew up on a farm, and there's a creativity to that for sure, but it's a little more hard labor of a lifestyle. We raised pigs, grew cotton, soybeans, had a large garden as well. So I love nature, but writing is primarily an inside task, inside your heart, and also indoors. Good lighting.
When did you start really taking pen to paper and start writing? And how did it start off? Did it start off more poems? Did it start off trying to where did that creativity start aspect of the writing start?
It's something I've always done. I would finish my tests early as a kid so that I could just draw on the backs of them.
So doodle.
Yeah, I had a fourth grade teacher who finally realized what I was doing and then said, hey, I'll give you paper. You don't have to rush through your test. You do your work, and I'll give you paper. You don't have to finish your test early so you can draw on the back. But it was never something I took seriously. It's just something that came freely. And I thought, everything else I do, I've got to find a real job. I've got to do something else. And so I chased. I loved cameras and working in video. I made a lot of home movies as a kid. And so then I thought, I guess what I'm supposed to do is just work in news. That seemed like,
media.
Okay, yeah. I could do that. That's creative enough and respectable and attainable. There's news stations all over the country. I could do that. So I worked in news for a bit and quickly learned I don't want to do that. As you do, right?
Yeah.
Because with that, I found, I love telling stories. I love meeting with people. I love getting out there and finding beauty and getting a great shot. And then you come back in the edit and you start to put it together. And back then I was editing on reel to reel. There was a station that had not moved to digital editing yet.
Yeah.
So I was learning to edit that way. And then I had to learn digital. And then you get in the edit and you realize, oh no, I am telling the story of somebody's worst day.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
You
don't think about it that way, but it's true. I mean, I'm sure there's nice stories you tell as well, but yeah, very true.
There's lots of other stories I could have told, but the stories were assigned to us. And you're like, there's a car accident here, just, down from the studio, go get that. Oh, somebody messed up. Let's go tell the story of the fallout from that. Over and over, I realized I'm telling stories of the worst day in somebody's life. And I'm focused on getting the best shot, not on being comfort or bringing hope. And I began to really have a longing to tell better stories. And I didn't know what they were, but I suddenly knew what they weren't. And that there was another story to tell. And so I began kind of chasing after that. And as part of that, one of the things I started to recognize was that a story I wanted to hear was the world from more of a child's perspective. So how do they see the world? There's a different way of seeing hope and seeing possibility. And I was longing for that, so created that.
What? Okay, I'm gonna ask you. I'm gonna go back to one quick question I just have in my head. You always hear, and I was very much like that. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur for 26 plus years. You always hear going through school, children that are very creative or very, they have a hard time really caring or focusing on their education because they have so much other energy built towards creating other things. Did you fit in that category? Were you always like I was in school, like I couldn't wait to finish school. I couldn't wait to get out of high school. I couldn't, because I felt like I had so much more to do. Did you go through any of that growing up?
Yeah, I felt like something's very wrong with me.
Yeah.
Something is very wrong with me, but I'm also a pleaser. So I wanted to do well. I wanted to do well in school, but I was really, really wanting to share with them the poetry I'd written about cats. I was really more interested in these doodles about birds, or these things that were these worlds I was creating in my head, or events I was wanting to create, or these different things I was wanting to bring into the world, and yet feeling like, oh, but that's a little too weird, or that's not what they want. Let me do the homework that's assigned, and then everything else will be icing on the cake, and I'll hide that icing, and it's just for me and my friends. And I began to learn that that's the good stuff. That's the stuff worth sharing. That's the stuff the world needs. And so I'm definitely, I have radar now for those kids and former kids who feel a little bit on the outside, who feel maybe they're the misfit toys, the island of misfit toys, like in Rudolph. Those were the most interesting toys.
No, 100% sure, 100% sure. So when you had that mindset of seeing the world through a lens of a child, or just their expression, was there a moment that just triggered that thought, or was that just a creative over the years of your childhood wanting to express how you felt? Like what changed? Is there a child you saw and you saw something they did? Like, was there a moment that just clicked for that idea?
It's always been something that I've been drawn to and interested in. Because I think back to all the things that resonated with me were all things that had real children's voices including like the original Peanuts specials. They had awkward young kids' voices doing them. You can tell they're not acting. It's just real kids. Reading. I even love classic Sesame Street. The voiceover artists were just kids talking about, going somewhere. It was just real voices of real kids, and they're imperfect and a little messy and a little like innocent, out of tune. And there's something that's more real about that. And I even love, that's part of why what I loved about, I began being drawn to the indie music scene in the 90s, MTV and all that. I was more interested in those bands that were playing out of tune, those artists that were that captured what it feels like to be a kid or to be just a person. It's to have big feelings and not quite the ability to express them. Just enough to playing it. It's a little out of key. Daniel Johnston is a musical artist I love, someone who had these big worlds and big ideas and yet couldn't fully express them in his music. And if you're trained with an ear that's just for things you hear on the radio, you miss out on the fact that, there's something far more beautiful and there's someone singing raw from their heart, from their imagination. And so I've always been drawn to that. And when I thought back to the things that I needed as a kid, a place that was safe for me and a place where I felt like I could be the weird kid that had dreams and could share them around the campfire was summer camp. And I've always loved camps. Yeah. It was a place where, you know, there was just enough structure, but a whole lot of play, and I felt like I belonged. So my wife and I, we began creating summer camps, like different camp experiences.
When did this start? How long ago?
So that was 12 years ago.
Okay, so you've been at it for a while. Okay, go.
Longer.
Yeah.
And she and I met at summer camp as kids.
How ironic, huh?
Yeah, we met at camp as kids. It took a little while for me to convince her that we were more than friends, but we did meet as friends at camp. And then we worked as counselors at a camp, and then got married on the soccer field at camp.
That's pretty amazing. How long have you been married for?
So 19 years.
That is, so you got married probably the same year as me. I'm going to 19 years, September 20.
Bravo. It just gets better and better. And like when we started thinking about, okay, she and I work together a lot. And working together with your spouse can have challenges, but for 100%. Us, it's been so such a part of who we are.
Just describe your wife to me and tell me what does she mean to you? Putting you on the spot.
Oh man, it's gonna be this. She's everything. She and I are true partners in the sense that we finish each other's sandwiches all the way. She is all the things I am not, which is many things. Yeah. And where I am messy, she is a perfectionist. Where I am a big dreamer, she is a clear and precise planner. And where I am a doodler and love to draw, she is the one who adds flourishes of color. And so even the way we now collaborate on picture books. And so I do these sketches, and my sketches are getting a little bit more dynamic and a little more like complex for me. But for her, she takes them and then elevates them and adds what I see in my head but can't express with my hands. And so it is a true team in that way. And so we've approached everything that way, from parenting to our business.
How many children do you have?
I have two.
How old?
9-year-old and a 7-year-old.
Boys or girls?
A boy and a girl.
So which is the youngest?
Our little girl.
Okay, so I'm the opposite. We've been married, both same thing, 19 years. My daughter just turned 16. My son just turned 14.
Amazing. So you're in a totally different path, totally different needs.
Yeah,
they have it.
100%. But I've from day one have built. I would say not even a unique relationship, but I'm very present father. Like I've wrote a book called Entrepreneurial Dad. Like I'm a very present father. I make sure that I'm very present. I spend a lot of time with them. Like they're my workout partners. Like I'm going to be home at 2:30, 3 o'clock today, and we go to the gym together. We do a lot together. And I try to be still that cool dad that even though my daughter is 16, still wants to hang out with, wants to do things with. So we've built this really, really good relationship. And I mean, they're everything to me, right? Everything to me. So, they're my drive and my passion for everything I do. Right. And my wife's just, it's just the one that keeps everything anchored together, and which is so special. Right.
The anchor.
Yeah.
Beautifully said.
So being a dad, I'm just throwing questions that are popping in my head now. Being a dad, what does dad mean to you? Being a dad?
There's always the idea of what you think something's going to be, and then what it actually is. I knew everything there was to know about parenting until I became a parent.
Oh yeah, you're never prepared.
I also thought I knew who I was. I knew everything about me, and becoming a father unlocked so much of my childhood.
Yeah.
It brings you back to who you were when you were a child, what you needed, what it felt like to be vulnerable, what it felt like to need someone in your life. And you begin to reflect on what you had, what you didn't have, what you want them to have that you had, what you don't want them to have. And it just, all that swirls in you and around you. And hopefully you don't run away from those big feelings or challenges that pop up in your head, but you like you were talking about being a present parent. That's been my goal, and it's a big goal, and each day calls for different types of presence. Yet I'm trying to show up.
Yeah, that's all it is. Is showing up and building. I always say showing up and building as many memories as you possibly can, because life is short. I mean, time flies by, and there's stats out there to say 80 to 90% of the face time you have with your kids before the age of 18. So I'm looking at my daughter. I'm like, another 2 years, she's off to college. I'm like, I got to make the most of this. And I still look at her and think of when she was 3 months old, colicky, and we were walking up and down the halls taking shifts. Me and my wife thinking like, what are we doing? So it's like it's crazy how fast time flies and how beautiful life is, but how we're getting older. And now that I'm not sure if your parents are still around, but I lost my dad 15 months ago, and he was hands down my best friend. And now I look at my kids, and especially my son, I go, I'm his best friend. Like I'm everything to him. I'm his hero. So I look at that and I'm like, my journey is coming now. Like when I look at my dad, I'm next in line if everything goes correctly in the path of life. So it's just an eye opener how quickly life is, and you have to build as many memories, because that was one thing my dad. I mean, we didn't financially come from a ton, but my dad built as much memories as he could with me, and I talk about those memories all the time. I have those stuck and engraved in my head. I mean, we went for 12, 13 years straight. My dad worked at Ford Motors, and I tell the story all the time. Worked at Ford Motors, and what he'd do is he'd pack all his holidays into one big holiday in the summer for 4 weeks. He would take off 4 weeks. We'd jump in the car from Toronto, Canada, drive up to Cape Cod, rent a little cottage by the beach, and we spend 2.5, 3 weeks every summer there. And those drives and those memories of just being in a little cabin with my family and waking up and going for walks they're priceless. And when my kids got old enough, the first thing I did was grab them and we took a road trip to Cape Cod. So it's those memories are priceless, and you have to keep building. My son's a big baseball guy. I'm a big. We just came this past weekend from Chicago. We were in Chicago to watch the Cubs game. So it's this: you got to build as much memories as you can while they're young, because life is short. You don't know what happens, right?
I love that you keep using the word build.
Yeah, it's constant. You're always working it.
Like, we don't necessarily think about that as far as in our relationships, in the meaning that we have in our lives, that we're building something. And it's such a healthy way to approach it.
Yeah.
That, you're not done.
No, you're building. Even your marriage, you're always constantly working on. You have to.
Constructing something.
100%.
And when you see it that way, it allows you to give yourself a little brace for those times when you weren't all there, or didn't go the way that you would have hoped, or whatever. But I think about my own childhood often, and even school. It's the field trips you remember.
Yeah.
It's those things that you go off, and so we've tried to do that in our family, making travel a part of what we do.
Yeah.
But I'm also realizing, like, I did a project where I interviewed 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders awesome. All over the United States. And my goal was to, in every state, and I wanted to have different learning environments. So I interviewed students who were, in big schools and public schools and private schools, home schools, an unschool was this whole like outdoor area that was just lots of different places. And I asked kids about grownups and what it meant to be a good grownup. How could I be a better grownup? And it was really fascinating because they all had different language for it, or different stories about good grownups, but all of them essentially had to do with somebody who consistently showed up.
Yeah.
It was not about the big trips. It was rarely like about, oh, my uncle got me a jet ski or whatever.
No.
It was, no, like my dad takes us to the park on Saturdays, and we ride bikes. Or my mom, we do this every Friday after school. We have a tradition, or it was some sort of consistent thing that this person showed up and they could count on them. And I thought about all the pressure I'd put on myself to be like this epic dad and do these huge birthday parties and do big things. And the assignment is not that. The assignment is today.
Yeah.
Look them in the eyes. and be there.
Yeah, be present. I mean, just look at your feet, know where you are at all times. And I always say too is, I talk to a lot of dads, and I always tell them, it's especially as a busy entrepreneur. I mean, life gets hectic. There's valleys where there's times when you need to focus on work a little bit more, and that's okay. But it's that quality time. You can spend half an hour, but if you turn off your phone and be present, that's so much more valuable than 3 hours checking your phone every 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And another thing I always say is, when you give a lot of children, when you give them a gift, they don't care about that toy. That toy they'll play with it for a day or two. It's that in their eyes, that recognition that my parents they recognize my achievement, or they're thanking me, or they're happy for me, or they're giving me, is that present moment of like, wow, they're here for me.
They know me. They see me.
Yes. It's not the gift, it's that moment. So if you take that mindset and turn around and be like, hey, Johnny, let's go to the batting cage. Or, hey, Johnny, let's go for a bike ride. So much more special. So much more special.
And one of the things that's been important to my wife and I is, we have this little workshop here where we are able to do our work. So we can film things. We have a recording booth. We also have an art area, and we ship art prints and packages and books and all that sort of thing. And we have an area too where the kids can make their stuff, and a shelf in the store where my son sells books he makes and maps that he's making. And we have this desire that our kids grow up seeing mom and dad do something they love.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to be careful about complaining about being busy or complaining about the work I'm doing. I want to be honest with them, but I also want them to know I'm doing what I love,
which is so special.
And sometimes I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah.
And I want them to see that and to go through the successes. And so like when I had a book come out the week bookstores closed for COVID. Oh. It came out the week everything shut down, the week the world shut down. So a book came out and bookstores are closed. And I was so disappointed, of course. And there's a million losses that were had. Everybody had something to mourn in that moment. Yeah. But then, flash forward, or last year, we had a picture book that became a New York Times bestseller. And we celebrated with our kids. Like, they were with us when we got the call. And I love that they saw us go through that. They saw the struggle. They saw us making the art. They saw the whole process, and then got to celebrate the success with us and see the joy. And I think there's something that does to a person. Because I grew up watching my dad do what he loves.
Yeah.
Working with dirt, working with plants, and seeing them grow. Like, I remember he's a big, tough Southern man, and yet him relying so much on the rain to come, and he's done all the work he can do, and he's just at the mercy of the weather. Life of a farmer, huh? And then when the rain hit, and I saw the joy, and like these tears of joy come from this big, tough man, I saw passion, and I saw the art of what he was doing, and that seeps into you, where you think, I want to live in a way where I'm doing something I care about, and regardless of what it is, kids pick up on it.
I love that. 100%. 100%. I want to jump into another topic, but I always say, I mean, as a parent, you have to be aware that, I mean, a lot of parents try to mentor their children, but it's the indirect mentoring which probably counts the most. How you treat others. Do you open doors for others? How do you talk to your spouse? All those things that you don't realize when you're doing at your relaxed state is indirectly mentoring your children. They're seeing that, they're mimicking that, they're locking that in their memory. So it's very important to be aware of that as a parent, that indirect mentoring at all times.
Yeah. I think Fred Rogers said that the best things are caught, not taught.
100%.
and it's so true. We want to believe these grand lectures we give or whatever are going to be what sticks, but it'll be the way that we talk about people in traffic.
It's true. It's true. It is so true. So true. So, Kid President, how did that all start? And are you still doing those videos consistently?
No, so I'm doing completely new work now.
Perfect.
And have continued making new things.
I'm aware. I saw a whole bunch of your new stuff. Yeah.
So Kid President was a project I just started with my little brother-in-law, who at the time was 9. I just packed him up for college yesterday.
Great. Talking about time flying.
I mean, yesterday we were moving boxes into a dorm room. And so I'm doing great. No big emotions here. All fine. Everything's great. Yeah. It's wild because that came at a time where we had been working with kids at different camps. We had created a program that was for kids who wanted to change the world. And it was junior high and high school students who were doing service projects and doing things with their schools and churches to make their communities better. So I'm surrounded by these just beautiful stories of beautiful people doing things for others. And these were kids. And then I was feeling the tension between what I was seeing happening with kids and their compassion and creativity, and I was seeing with their parents and grandparents and the conversations they were having online and the cynicism. And I just thought, there's a better story to live here. There's a better story to tell here. What if they could just hear from these kids? And I'd made a few videos where it was just, really heartwarming and showing what kids were doing to help their neighbors who were homeless, or what kids were doing to start a food kitchen, teenagers that started a soup kitchen.
Which is pretty amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And those, people would see, oh, that's nice, but they weren't actually listening or hearing, or they would sort of see the few seconds and go, okay, I get where he's going with this. Yeah. And C.S. Lewis talked about that you have to get past people's watchful dragons, that everybody has these watchful dragons, like, hey, wait a minute, are you trying to teach me something? Yeah. And a way to sneak past that is through humor and is through playfulness.
Yeah.
And I thought, what if there's a video series where you listen to a kid and he's pretending to be president. And
I mean, that's the hook there, right? That was so creative just to think about that. I mean, as soon as you said the president, I mean, people are just gonna like, what's this about? It's such a hook to pull people in, which I love.
Right,
that. Like,
he seems to be in charge of something. He must be. Important.
So when you thought of that, I mean, was there different options? Like, instead of president, was there different ideas you were running through? Like, when did you guys lock into the president aspect?
Well, it starts off. Every idea starts off as like a little seed, and then they are sometimes the right direction, and sometimes you're like, oh wait, that's not it. Like, there's something richer here. Because I think at one point he was just going to be like, we'll call it Tiny Obama, and it's like, no, that's not what this is. Like, this is not a mockery or like, it's not that. It's a little leader. Like, it's a little leader. And then I just was like, it's my wife is the one who said, Kid President, just call it Kid President. It's the kid president. It's like, yeah, that's cool. And then I started thinking about all of the ways in which when a child is playing in their room, that is the center of the universe. And what if, because I used to host a talk show in my bedroom. This was like a talk show. I'm interviewing stuffed animals. I'm like, it was, if it had been broadcast to the world, who knows? But so what if you could broadcast a child's imagination, and their deep desire to the world in a way? So we set up a little desk, and the desk is actually a cool story because I found it on the side of the road one day, and that's where I had the idea of, ooh, that would make a great talk show desk, and I'd had that sitting around. We had pieces of cardboard left over from camp, giant sheets. I was like, well, let's just make a little set. And I had tin cans from our cat, and so we made a tin can phone because he wouldn't have a real phone, and it'll have string coming out of it. And just put him in his Easter suit and let's go. And so Robbie, who played the part of Kid President, he is my brother-in-law, lives across the street from us, or did until yesterday. Good grief, Jeff. Why are we talking? Well, anyway, I
think about this. You're young enough to be able to enjoy seeing his future come together.
Yes,
right. Yes. It's a positive thing. You're gonna just see him grow and his future grow, and wherever it takes his path. And it's just a big part of that, right?
It's
hard. It's hard. It's like essentially it's almost like your own kid going off to college, right?
It very much so. Like the journey he and I then went on, it's impossible to explain, and there's a closeness that will always be there because we met President Obama and we sat in the Oval Office together. We had a sleepover at the National Archives and slept beside the Constitution of the United States of America.
So insane.
We met Beyonce together. We interviewed celebrities like Tom Hanks, and we had dance parties and just
that journey. How long did from he was 9 at that time when it started to what age did the actual, like, the cutoff of those videos, or when they start slowing down?
Yeah.
The journey? How long was the journey?
Well, when it started, just us playing around, and I said, well, I've got enough to make more than one video, so I'll just, with the scraps, I'll release one a week. And then I discovered accidentally one of the great secrets of making things on the internet that it's consistency.
100%.
Because I had a million ideas before, but I'd never been consistent. And this one, I was like, okay, a little challenge. One of my friends had actually told me this. He said, you are one of the most creative people I know, but I'm just waiting on you to actually stick with one of your ideas. And that was Jeff Schinneberger. Shout out to Jeff, who I hated at the moment when he said that. But it was the kick in the pants I needed. It was him saying, hey, you got to just try this. Stick with an idea. So I released a video every week for 4 years, maybe. It was about 4 years. And then we began growing. We did a television series. We then moved into doing more different kinds of directing. Like I directed and wrote for Soul Pancake, which was Rainn Wilson's production company and friends.
Yeah.
And moving into other television work where I was writing. And at that same time, like this project that I'd just been doing from my house and having fun with Robbie, it was still fun, but it was also becoming like a bit of a monster. Millions of people were watching, emails coming in, people assuming this fictional character was real, assuming that this kid was making the videos himself and writing them and releasing them, and not understanding the complexity of the message that I was trying to send about compassion
Yeah.
and misunderstanding it. And so wanting to make him a celebrity, which he didn't want to be, or it was this confusion around that we just wanted to make a thing that inspired and encouraged people. And it did, but it was just becoming a lot. And there was a moment where we were in LA and Robbie had someone reach out wanting to know if he would like audition for a sitcom. And I thought, well, I don't think he would want to do this. He could, but let me ask him. And essentially the question was, do you want to try out for this sitcom, or, we'd stay in LA a couple more days? He's like, or could we go home? And I was like, yeah, we could go home, but this is it'd be a TV show. It's a pretty big deal. He's like, but if I don't, we could go home. I was like, yeah, no, like, I don't care. We'll go home. He's like, I want to go home. And so I was like, okay, cool. Like, this is what he is much more interested in band, in high school band, or junior high band at that time.
Yeah.
And wanting to just be with friends. And so I'm grateful that the rest of the family was supportive of, this needs to be healthy. Like, this needs to be the way it was birthed out of love and joy. It should stay that way. And it never got not that way, but it could have easily veered into that territory.
Yeah.
And so thankfully we were surrounded by people at Soul Pancake and other people in the industry, which we miraculously found that actually cared about kids and said, we don't care if this continues to be a monster success. It doesn't succeed if the kid doesn't succeed.
Yeah. And it's you said exactly, you said you're surrounded around the right people to make the right decisions, because you always hear those horror stories where parents live vicariously through their children, and they would take that opportunity just to really, you could talk about, so many celebrities go down that path, young celebrities that were in the industry very early, right? And it could have gone both ways. He could have done the sitcom and became massive and loved it and had it been focused on a career, but at the same time too, it could have turned to a negative. But you have to always go with, your intuition, your gut, right? So I'm happy you guys went that route. So
one thing that was one of the things that was beginning to happen. This sort of felt like it was the wild, wild west days of YouTube in a way.
Yeah.
Where everybody's still kind of figuring out what it is and how it works. And we were on the receiving end of a lot of an audience that was still figuring out what YouTube was and began to almost want to transform it into something it wasn't, which was, I just viewed the videos as like a little gift to everybody each week that they then could go do something good for other people or do whatever. And the industry began to see it as, oh, this is a media platform in which this child can help us advertise this or help us do this, or we can build a brand around it. And we're like, that's not what this is about. And there was even like a thing that was, there was a book that came out last year as a picture book, and it made me that's so sad, because they were talking about kids who've done great things, and it was just all kids who've had a platform on YouTube. And I thought, that's not like we were included in that, and I felt so weird about it, because kids who've done great things are, your neighbors. How does
that work? Do they have to ask for authorization on something like that, or they just publish it?
Should.
I'm thinking, because they're using the likeness, right? That's what. Yeah.
But I'm like, there's going to be kids in schools that receive the message that, if you want to be special, you've got to do something big on YouTube, and that's not the message.
But that's a message a lot of kids are getting, right?
Yeah.
We're living in a social media world where, TikTok, and I literally just got on TikTok 2 days ago, because I'm like, I gotta utilize this platform for my podcast, because everybody, I feel like I'm like last on trying to jump on the ship there, but it's it's crazy how, I mean, you're getting some of these kids, like YouTubers, they're making millions. They're like 16, 17. And it could be a very powerful tool, and it could be a very negative tool. And with that negativity, was there ever moments where you're spreading positivity and you're just, because there's a lot of trollers on social media, were you ever getting any negativity towards any of your videos?
Yes.
I hate that.
And you know, I truly saw both sides of the internet, because we were able to build a beautiful community that gave me so much hope in humanity, in possibility. It was people, I was like reminded, I'm not alone. There's other people who care. And there's all these people doing beautiful, like incredible human beings, doing incredible things and just right where they are. And, you know, I would hear all that. And then because it was such a positive little bolt of light on the internet, like it also attracted people who just wanted to poke holes in it, or to just troll. And so we had a fun opportunity there to because we have this healthy community, to have them be part of how to handle that in a positive way.
Interesting.
So especially because there's so many young people that were following it at the time, and we were able to, like, if somebody was attacking the page, then I would respond in the way that I try to respond in my own life, which is in a very human way, where it would be a photo of me saying, "Hi, my name is Brad. I just read your comment. Like, I'm a real person, and it's okay if you don't like what I'm doing, but just wanted you to know I am a real guy, and I hope that you have a good day. I see you." That was just a way to make it human. And we would also do where we're like, "Hey, we hope you have a good day. Here's a corn dog." And it would be Robbie and I holding pictures of holding corn dogs and holding a sign that says that person's name. Like, and what would happen? It would begin a conversation, and often those people would then converse with me and would open up about, you know, they didn't really know what this was, or they would open up. They're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I was having a bad day." But like, they literally would say that. Not all the time, but it at least was a moment of humanity in this wild internet. And I think that's the secret.
It is a wild west, right? I mean, you're getting, for every positive comment, you're always going to get your trollers. You're always going to get your people just doing it. Not even, they don't care. They're doing it for a reaction.
Yes.
So how you react, your reaction to their reaction, like you said, turning it into a positive, really, for one, turns a light onto you, because your positive influence is going to be seen by you, the people that truly do care about you, like, hey, this guy's legitimately a good person. So, I mean, you guys nailed it on the head. I mean, exactly what to do, right?
And I made these stickers that I started as just a little project where I was putting it on, I would draw on the newspaper, the cover of the newspaper, no matter who is on the front page. I would put a little speech bubble coming out of them that said, "I'm just a human being who wants to be loved." And no matter who was on the front page of the newspaper, sometimes it was hard for me to put that, because it'd be like, "Oh, I really disagree with this person. Just a human being who wants to be loved." And then I started sharing those. And then I started realizing all the commenters, all those people, if I thought about them as, this is just a human being who wants to be loved. So maybe they're a troll, they just want to be seen. Or maybe they're being really sweet and they have something they're just a human being who wants to be loved. And think about them as a person with a heartbeat, as somebody who has a family.
But sometimes it's hard, man. Some of those comments, it's hard sometimes.
Anybody. I said, whoever said you're your own worst critic never made anything for the internet.
100%. 100%.
Everybody has these opinions. And that's one of the things when kids ask me about, like, I want to start a YouTube channel. I'm going to start doing TikTok. I'm going to start whatever. One of the first questions I have for them is, well, what do you want to say?
Yeah.
What is it you want? What's your note you want to add to the symphony? Like, what is it? Is it that you just want to be seen? That's a different conversation.
Yeah.
But if you really have something you want to say, I want to help you. and let's start there. And that's where we really begin to create a better internet for each other, when we treat it like a garden that we are tending, and not the dumpster fire that it can become when we just add or pile on, or go to the shiniest, brightest thing. But if we try to nurture something good that we're wanting to say, and that's becoming, I think, increasingly harder. And I've had many days where I feel like I don't belong here.
It's because it's become such a big business, right? When you're getting celebrities, I mean, not even celebrities. I mean, these are just influencers. Like I was talking to a couple of people that manage a couple of TikTok accounts, and they have young, quote unquote, influencers. They're managing their accounts, and these guys don't have massive followings, maybe 500, 600,000 followers, which is still a big number, but they're getting paid by companies 10,000, 15,000 to do a post. When it becomes such a business, you're dealing with a 16-year-old getting $15,000 to do a post. Now it's a huge industry. And when you turn into this massive industry, there's going to be jealousy. There's going to be competition. There's going to be ways where people just, the negativity is just going to start flowing. And I don't think as it gets bigger, it's just going to get worse.
Well, that's one way to see it. And I feel that a lot, but I'm ever hopeful that this next generation can help us create something better. Because we're in the middle of an attention war, war for people's attentions. Yeah. And what we also have are a whole bunch of people who maybe want attention or are hungry for it. Yeah. And what we need to do instead is pay attention, to actually pay attention to the rhythm of the world around us, to the heartbeats of those around us, to the things that are actually essential and vital. And that's becoming a little harder. It's getting drowned out in the noise and all the bright lights. We're unable to see the natural light of the stars. We're unable to see. And so it is interesting that all these companies want to pay for the attention that these influencers can bring. But it's also a reminder that this is an economy in which attention is valuable. And so I think hopefully more and more we can remind each other that how worthy we are of each other's attention and how much it matters to pay attention to the things that actually matter. Yeah. And so I believe that if we actually nurture that, it can be a garden of good.
No, I mean, there's a lot of people
close to a dumpster fire.
Yeah, 100%. There's a lot of people out there putting positive messages, and a lot of people have the right mindset. So it's just exactly what you said. You just got to really hone in and who you're giving your time to, because time is very valuable. Time is something we can't get back. So look at who you're giving our time to and who you're spreading to. There's one thing I saw on your social media, Socktober. What is that about? Is your involvement that? Did you start that? What is that about?
Yeah. Socktober was this idea that came from a kid. We had been doing different service projects here in our community in West Tennessee. And I mentioned to this group of kids we were working with that, just down the road from us is one of the largest per capita populations of men and women who are homeless. And I stated that, now I look at it and I'm mortified by this, but I stated it almost like it was a fun fact. Like I didn't say it in the hope that we could do something. I just said, yeah, did you know, like just down there, this, I just read that. Huh. Isn't that neat? And there was a girl who said, that's what? We got to do something.
How old? How old was she?
15. Yeah. Maybe 15. It's just like, what? And I was struck by her immediate gut response was, I'm not okay with that. Like, what? It was not a fun fact for her. It was a hard fact that did not have to be so. And so we began to a journey of finding out what our neighbors who are homeless needed. And I realized I'd never visited our shelter. I realized I didn't know how many people, I didn't know anyone who was homeless. I did not know their names. I did not know their stories. And it was a journey of getting to know our neighborhood better and meeting these people who were showing up for them in a really meaningful way. And I'm thinking, I want to do something really big. I want to do something huge for the shelter. And she said, here's what we need: socks. Socks. They're one of the most needed, least donated items. It's about to get cold for winter. That's what we need. And I was a little like let down because I thought, like, let's do something big.
Yeah.
And then we said, okay, well, and it happened to be close to fall. So we declared the month of October Socktober and began collecting just for that particular shelter. And then the next year, it went so well. It was like an entry point to us doing more for the shelter, finding out other needs they had. We thought, well, what could this look like in other communities? So we just declared it Socktober and let a few schools in on it. I made like a video, and it was really, this was before Kid President. And we saw that there were schools and churches that started to do it in different parts of the country. As just as they heard about it online or a friend had called them about it. And it was just people finding out what their local shelter needed and then rallying their community around that in the month of October. And then fast forward to Kid President starting, and I did a Kid President video where he declared it Socktober. And then it spread all over. And now, even now, years later, like last year, it was mentioned on Jeopardy. Like it was,
wow.
It's become a thing that is people don't necessarily know where it came from or how. There's no rewards, there's no prize, there's no central office you have to call to get permission. It's literally just a reminder that, hey, there's people in need, they're in your neighborhood, go do it. And people do it. And so Socktober is this giant blast of hope to me. It's a reminder that there is a lot of need, but there's a whole lot of helpers, and it's beautiful what we can do. Jeff, I was on an airplane one time, and a dad asked me, "So, like, what do you do?" And I said, "I make silly videos on the internet, you know." And he's like, "Oh, that's cool." And I said, "Yeah, it's about kids and grown-ups making the world a better place. Usually, that's the spirit of it." And then he said, "Oh, it's great." And he worked like at an office or did whatever. And he said, "All right, let me show you a picture. This is me and my daughters. Their school does this project. You probably want to check it out. It's called Socktober." And we had never been to our shelter. And he sent me a picture. He's showing me on his phone on the plane. It's him with his daughters, and they're making him donate one of his jackets that they didn't like. And he's like, we went and yeah, but look it up. It's Socktober. And everything in me wanted to scream, like, I did that. It was me. I made the website, like all that stuff. But instead, I was so struck. I was so struck by
almost humbled, I would say.
Just what?
Yeah.
How am I in the sky right now next to a person I've never met? It's to do something.
This is one of the positive things of our generation of the internet working, and it's just the world is so small. And I would say the last 2 years, because of COVID, I would say it's sped up the technology where you're getting grandmas and grandpas now using Zoom and to talk to their grandkids. Like it's sped up so much that has made us so much smaller of a world. And things like that are going to be more.
Remember that. If we can remember the things we do impact the people around us, the stories we tell create the world we live in, that all this stuff, we're connected far more than we could ever imagine. And that it matters what you share and do. And it was this giant wink that, hey, keep going. It doesn't matter who gets the credit. Keep doing it.
Storytelling. And this is also something you have a passion for. Do you think it's almost becoming slowly a lost art? Because it's like you, as growing up, you would have your grandparents, you would have people telling stories, sitting around, and now it's like you don't get that experience anymore. Do you think it's slowly coming back through people like yourself, or is it something that that slowly died out?
Oh, no, I think that to tell a story is such a human thing. It's such a need that we have, that from our earliest point in life, we hear the words once upon a time and our ears perk up, and it doesn't stop.
Yeah.
Like, and we tell stories all the time, whether we actually call it story time or not.
Yeah.
And they feed us, they nourish us.
Yeah.
I think the art that's being lost is the appreciation and respect of what stories can do, because stories nourish our imaginations. Like they begin to furnish even our imaginations with things that we are only beginning to realize, that the little things that we tell each other about who we are and where we live and what kind of meaning we make in our lives, those are stories. And the stories we tell can create the world we live in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I want to tell stories in which everybody has a seat at the table. I want to tell stories in which everything can be okay and better, and stories that push our imaginations to realize that that's possible. Stories where little kids are listened to behind the desk. Yeah. Stories where people are respected, where people are good to each other. That seems far from our imagination, but it should be right there in there and something we live out of. And so, like, I believe in the power of stories. And I can't wait to see what kinds of, the thing that really excites me are generative stories and generative art, the kinds of things that we make that inspire other people to make things.
Yeah.
I love the kinds of story that makes a kid go, ooh, I want to do that. I want to tell that story. I want to do that. Yeah. And so that's the kinds of picture books I'm wanting to make, and the kinds of videos we do are the ones that I hope inspire more videos. The kinds that, when we did Kid President, it became a thing that I couldn't believe was happening, when I would tell a story about us throwing a parade for a postal worker, and then within a matter of weeks, there were hundreds of other parades being thrown in the country. Like, that's a story that inspires more stories.
So powerful, huh? So powerful, the influence that was built there. Like, listen, give me a little story of meeting President Obama.
What's funny is Robbie and I, this past summer, we spent a lot of time recording a podcast of our own that is, I still don't know what I'm going to do, how to do it. I may need to talk to you, Jeff. But I'm getting to hear a lot of these things that we did together from his perspective. So I have my memory of going to the Oval Office and meeting President Obama, and then there's his memory, what it was like for him as a kid. So for me, it was this just magical thing where I went in and I was nervous wreck, and I got to talk to him about what I was seeing in classrooms and all of this. And I remember one of the Secret Service men was crying, like right as we were leaving, and he just said, "This is really special. We haven't had something like this in a while," because it was such a tender visit.
Yeah,
President Obama morphed from being leader of the free world to like friendly uncle who was asking him about his homework and pets and favorite colors, and then wanting to talk to me about what teachers needed and what I was seeing in schools and what kids needed right now. And I got to like tell him that, and that he actually was listening. Yeah. And it was baffling. And then Robbie's memory of that is the floor was really creaky. and he remembers getting in trouble because he got so nervous when we were waiting to go in. He got so like, he was just this rambunctious kid. He didn't know what to do. So he started like putting his hands on the walls, and I was going, "Don't touch the walls. Like, you got oily hands. Like, don't touch the walls." Then he started like, "What if I lick the wall?" And he started pretending he was going to lick the wall. And it was just so strange. But one of the Secret Service guys came and was like, "Sir, please don't lick the wall." So he like remembers these weird little moments, and also like remembers that he was given a yo-yo. The president gave him a yo-yo that had the presidential seal.
Yeah.
And it's just funny that those things were happening at the same time.
Does Robbie have any inch in him future-wise to go into politics?
No.
Okay. I'm sure you've been asked that a million times, but I just had to ask.
No, and even as a kid, it was never. People would always ask that, or what he would want to do, and it was always a different answer, and it kept me on my toes. Like, oh no, what's he going to say?
Yeah. So, what current projects are you working on? Before we wrap this up, I just want to let the audience know what current projects you're working on and what things we can expect to see from you from in the near future.
Yeah, so one thing I'm doing is an event called the Failabration.
Failabration, okay.
Failabration. It's like a celebration of failure. I've always gone to events where the speakers talk about all these cool things they've done, and everybody's supposed to leave inspired. And I wanted to do one where everybody talked about their biggest screw ups, and everybody left going, "Oh, okay, well."
Those are probably more of a lesson than anything else, right?
Totally. That's where the hope is. That's where the best stories are. Like, I want to hear that. Tell me what didn't go right, So we're doing an event called Failabration that I can't wait for. And then I have a new book coming out called The Fantastic Bureau of Imagination. It's about a secret agency that is run by these little creatures called figments. And very proud of that and excited to see what that sparks in the imaginations of kids and former kids. I love that picture books are this one form of media we have that is can be equally consumed and appreciated by kids and adults.
Yeah.
The adults are reading it and can be seen at different levels, and they're kind of experienced by both people. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what this book means for kids and adults.
I'm gonna ask you one last question. If something were to happen to you today, how would you want to be remembered or described by your loved ones?
Dogs and kids loved him.
Do you have a dog?
I don't. I grew up around dogs. I love dogs. We've been kind of, we've been campaigning for a dog at the house for a little bit, but we might get one. But there's something about these dogs and kids. They have an ability to see the best in people and true character. And so I would hope I am loved.
Unconditional love, right?
The highest honor would be loved by kids and dogs.
Unconditional love. We have our 3-year-old chocolate lab, and he's just a bundle of love, right? And there's nothing that spells love like a dog. Like, you just walk in the house and that enjoyment of just like that. He's home, wagging his tail. There's nothing like that. Nothing
wag
like
of the
that.
tail, the perk of the ears.
I'm going to show you something. When my dad passed away, I wanted something to keep his memory going, and I think you'd appreciate this. And I took pen to paper, and I actually, within a 7-day period, I wrote 6 children's books. I only released 2 of them so far. And it was nothing to do with the money. It had to do with just keeping his memory alive. And they're called Adventures of Grandpa Joe. And in the books, there is my grandfather and my dad and my 2 kids, and they look identical to them and everything. It's just adventures with a lesson. And the first one that came out was, you can see this here, Strawberry Mountain, a lesson on gratitude. And the second one is Kindness Goes a Long Way, Adventures of Grandpa Joe.
Oh, that's good. What a gift.
So I thought you would appreciate that more than most people, but it's just I think it's just a way of, for the future, for people to especially my kids to really have something to hold on to for memories with their grandpa.
Yes, to keep telling the stories.
Yeah.
Embody them and live them.
Yeah.
Yes.
This has been amazing, brother. I totally love this. I'd love to have you back on. I'm sure that you're constantly doing different things, so we could probably talk all the time. So I'm sure I'll have you back on. And I'm looking forward to you finally releasing those podcasts. If you need help, you know where to come and ask.
Yeah, I do need help. I'm figuring it's learning a lot. Yeah. But I appreciate and love what you're doing and what you're building, not just with the podcast, but with your life. So
No, I
bravo,
appreciate
my
that.
friend.
Thank you. Thank you so much.